right, hello and welcome to another event from the Penn State Abington Launchbox located here at Penn State Abington. And today we are part of Penn State Startup Week for 2021. And Startup Week at Penn State is an annual event that brings together the best and the brightest Penn State students, alumni, faculty, innovators, all coming together to really start looking at entrepreneurship. This comes in the form of workshops like we're doing today, but there's also competitions, networking events, all kinds of things happening throughout the remainder of the week. So we invite you to not only check out the other events that are happening at the Abington Launchbox, but all across the entire Penn State network. Here today, we're going to be talking about healthy habits and how that might be something that is important to be addressing both for students, also faculty. So I'm here to listen and learn as well, but also for entrepreneurs in our community. This is something that I think all of us would love to be able to be more productive, more efficient, and also less stressed. So we have with us Professor Stephanie Abreu from Penn State Abington, and she's going to help us start identifying some ways that we might be able to begin to build strategies for a more productive and less stressful life. Just as a reminder, this is a video premiere from the Penn State Abington Launchbox. And this is on YouTube. So if you're joining us on YouTube, over on the right side of your screen, there should be a chat box. So as we talk with Stephanie Abreu today about healthy habits, please feel free to drop in questions, notes, comments as we go. And actually, we are here live with you as well, even though this is a recording. We're here in the space live, and we can answer questions and have discussions with you as we go through today's session. So, Professor Abreu, Stephanie, welcome. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for having me here.
Yeah. So, Stephanie, you want to share just a little bit of background about yourself, some of the things that you're interested in your field, not only of study, but what you educate people on at Penn State Abington. And my guess is that's going to lead into why are we here talking about healthy habits today?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am lucky enough to teach kinesiology at Abington. And with that, I've also started an on-campus, well, now it's virtual, but on-campus group called Live Well at Abington, which essentially encompasses everything health and wellness. And I thought it would be very much needed and really important to have a group like this, not just for students, but also faculty and staff. And I love it because it does touch on all these different areas that we're going to be talking about today that really encompass all that is and makes us healthy individuals, right? From sleep to exercise and meditation, things like that. So I am extremely interested in really helping people to become the most productive, less stressed as they possibly can as they move through each day, right? Because we have all these different challenges that come up. And I think particularly now across the board, life has become extremely interesting. So talking about ways in which we can make our day a little bit less stressful, I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think even now, we're almost a year into kind of everyone has had some level of a revised schedule, life, social life, work life. Everything has really been affected. But just kind of not only taking note where we are today with things like our levels of stress, but also comparing that to where was that maybe a year ago? Am I more stressed than I was a year ago? Am I getting stressed from different sources? Are the sources of my stress changing? I think that's a great place to maybe start is to maybe even just start building awareness of not only our stress levels, but our sources of stress and how those sources of stress may be different than where they were just about a year ago.
Yes, very interesting that you say that because I think the dynamic has shifted very much so from where we were a year ago to where we are now. We are in a very fast-paced world that we live in. So I think that stress is automatically going to be a little bit higher. And if you are somebody that, might be starting a business or are running a business, you also have a lot of other responsibilities. You have families, you have, outside responsibilities on top of the work that you're doing. So this is adding stress to that. And I think the digital component that has become part of our lives, at least this year, more so than before, is also adding stress in a different way. It is draining in a way that can get away from us pretty quickly. So I think, like you just mentioned, Peter, that it's really important to become aware of how our bodies are responding in the different levels of stress that we're living in now. So maybe that means if you notice you're really not sleeping well, you need to maybe step back a little bit and start to examine, okay, so what can I do in my day to help improve my sleep? Because ultimately, if that's not good, then the rest of my day is probably not going to be as great either.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the real things that I thought this topic would be a great fit for again students, faculty, but also for entrepreneurs. Is that at the end of the day, the work that we produce, whether that's an assignment for a class or our business, if we are not our best selves, then the product's never going to meet our expectations anyway. So one of the things that I was hoping that we would be able to do, and I'm certain we're well down that road, is to also shine a focus not only on what people are doing as their business or their degree program, but who the person matters. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons why the subject really, I think, jumped out to me as something that we should be talking about more. Is that we're very focused on things like our work product, our work schedule, but as you just mentioned, our awareness. I'll speak for myself. I oftentimes forget to do those check-ins for myself, to think about, have I hydrated enough today, have I gotten a good amount of sleep, and again, those things always come after things
Yeah.
like checking my email, checking my calendar to make sure I have meetings. And what I think you're also proposing is maybe we need to make sure that we fit time in, and probably first we need to take care of the self first.
Absolutely. If you're not taking care of ourselves, then really nobody else is going to benefit from what you're doing. And I think that you mentioned, we forget about the who and the reason why you even start doing what you're doing and pursuing, maybe the business that you're pursuing or the degree or whatever the case may be. So making time to make sure that we're creating this nice balance. And
Hmm.
like you said, checking in, but don't check in when it's already too late, which I think you were alluding to there.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
I'll,
oh,
I'll
it's a
take
problem
accountability for
now.
that.
Yeah. So now I better go start, I better go down a gallon of water. Let's not do that. So let's be prepared and do simple things like let's have our meals ready for us, during the day before we get started, especially if it's going to be an extremely hectic day. So just those little minutes of planning ahead, scheduling out what you can, writing down 2 or 3 things that you want to get done for that day. You get done those 2 or 3 things, that's it, you're done. And, also really making sure that you're scheduling in your social media time, because
Hmm.
oftentimes I think what happens when we feel overly stressed, or even we like need a distraction, we go right to our phone and then we start scrolling. But that can also lead to some areas of, added stress too. You'll see things on there that then you'll go, oh, maybe I need to do something a little bit differently. So I think that also is something that needs to be scheduled in, and making sure we're not just using that as our outlet of stress, making sure that you're using things that are going to be beneficial for you as an outlet of stress, whether that be exercise, which, we all know that it's very important to exercise. At least that 30 minutes a day is going to get those feel good hormones, running through, and it'll actually help with your energy levels. So these are, some simple things. Maybe you don't have a 30-minute block. So maybe you can do 10-minute blocks throughout your day, and that'll count as some of your breaks away from the digital devices that you're in all the time, something like that. So you are ultimately going to be the one that knows what's going to work best for you and what your schedule looks like, how these things are going to fit in. But sleep is also going to be another really, really, really big part of this.
Yeah, and so for many entrepreneurs, business people, particularly entrepreneurship students, the concept of having a business plan is very natural. It's very simple to say, yeah, of course we would plan what we were going to do before we went out and did it. But at the same time, I again, I will only speak for myself. That's the one person that I can actually be accountable for. I wake up almost every day, and yes, I have a calendar, I have some things scheduled, but for the most part, I don't necessarily have a plan to get through anything other than the things that I have scheduled,
Mhm.
like meetings and classes. But I also think it might be important to be scheduling things in, like, take a break here, exercise, those kinds of things. So I really think that that's something that I know I could do, and my guess is there may be others that are listening as well, that maybe we need to be, as you mentioned, balancing out some of our plans and our schedules to include not only the things that we do in our work roles, but we all play multiple roles. We're family members, we're students, we are employees, employers, all these different roles. And I think maybe that you can't just schedule for one role. We have multiple things that we need to balance into that schedule.
Definitely. That's 100% true. I mean, I think a very challenging part of not just being a student and also working, but being in an entrepreneurship type program or running a business is the constant go, go, go. So scheduling in even 5 minutes of stillness. And by that, I
Mm,
mean, I think it's
yeah.
really difficult for most of us to sit still and not have any distraction around us, right? I mean, maybe I'm only speaking for myself here as I'm in kinesiology, so I like to move, but it's a challenging thing and can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable to sit still for 5 minutes with no music, no nothing in the background, just you and your thoughts. But ultimately, what that does for you is it will help to initiate some of that our parasympathetic nervous system. So that means that part of our nervous system that tells us to slow down
Mm,
and bring your heart rate down a little bit, calm down, and not always have the cortisol running in the background. We don't want to constantly be living in that high stress. You want to make sure that even if it's 5 minutes a day, every day, it adds up. And so maybe that means it's 5 minutes before you go to bed that you do it. So that gives you time to sit still. You're going to think a lot of different thoughts, and that's okay. There's no, real right or wrong way to do this. It's just being still and not having distractions and noise and digital things around us all the time.
yeah.
That also helps to build awareness.
Yeah, that's good. And maybe this is a good point to bring in one of our students to maybe share some of the concerns that students are particularly having. So we're going to be able to be joined by Alan Kuzmenko, who is a Penn State Abington student. And Alan, we'll just ask you to, well, welcome, but we'll also ask you to have some questions with Professor Abreu about maybe some of the things that are critically important to the student experience in managing your time, your stress, and your energy, because again, students are oftentimes managing multiple roles. So, Alan, we'll turn it over to you.
Professor, I was wondering how I was supposed to handle stress while being a full-time student at college.
Well, I think that can be different for everybody. And firstly, I think it's really important to consider balance within your day. And the best way to do that is to become aware of the different things that you have to do throughout your day. Because, let's say that you know that you have class from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. And you want to make sure that you're scheduling in there some time to get up, take breaks, that you're also scheduling in there some time to eat something other than, a quick bag of chips, something that's going to be hearty and healthy for you so that you have the fuel necessary to pay attention for the rest of your day. And I think most importantly, it's making sure that you're checking in with yourself and making sure that you're staying hydrated. So if you're checking in with yourself and you're feeling like, well, I've really been sitting for 2 hours straight and my back's starting to hurt, my neck's starting to hurt. I need to get up. I need to move around. I need to listen to what my body's telling me. So maybe I'll do some stretches in between my, 5-minute break that I have. I'll go outside, take a quick walk, something like that. That'll help to refresh you, bring you back to what you have for the rest of your day. Now that just goes for, your classes. Obviously, you have a life outside of the classes that you're taking. So you also need to consider that. Maybe that means you have to even think about when you're going to see your friends, or even if it's only a Zoom thing, if you're not seeing them in person, as things are still what they are right now. But making sure you're scheduling in some time for that connection so that you're also taking care of yourself. Because I think that we lose ourselves in a lot of the things that we have to do on a regular basis. So keeping that connection will also help with keeping your social health intact and ultimately making you feel better.
Thank you. How about how do I go about maintaining like a healthy sleep schedule?
That's a great question.
Complete
Very
all my
good
schoolwork
question.
and involving everything in my life.
So again, I think this is going to be something that each individual is going to need to look at for themselves. If you're working on top of going to school, obviously this is going to make it even that much more complex and challenging to have that sleep schedule set. But if you know ahead of time, a week ahead of time, usually you're going to know what your work schedule is, or some of those other events you might have throughout the week. Staying on top of that, first and foremost, is really trying to go to bed at the same time every night. Now, if you have a work schedule that doesn't facilitate going to bed at, let's say, 11:30 every night, and there's going to be a couple nights that are a little bit different, that's okay. But really being mindful of trying to stick to a consistent sleep schedule is going to help your body stay regulated, which will in turn help to keep your hormones regulated in check. It'll help with your metabolism and your overall energy for the next day. So I think that's the easiest thing sort of to jump off of, as far as let's try to go to bed at the same time every night. Let's also try to not stare at a screen right before you go to bed, because what happens with that is your brain is then still staying active. And that's really the time where you need to start to decompress and say, okay, it's time to go to bed. So avoiding scrolling through Instagram, in bed while you're really trying to get ready to go to sleep. That's another habit that you can get into practicing.
All right, thank you.
You're
And I got
welcome.
my final question. So it would
Okay.
be how do I get myself determined enough to complete all of my homework as soon as I get through the day, like start doing it?
Well, that's also a great question. I think the easiest way to sort of do that is not to overwhelm yourself with probably the many assignments that you have to do and look at them all at once. Take your week by week. Maybe you do this month by month and write down what you're going to be accomplishing for that particular day. Let's say it's 3 things. And I say 3 because usually when it's more than that, it can be extremely overwhelming and frustrating. And if we don't get those 3 things done, then we tend to be even harder on ourselves and say, well, then just forget it. I'm not going to do anything. So 3 things a day. Obviously, if this is a big project you're talking about and that you have a month to do that, schedule in that time to do 2 things for that project that week. That way, when you're leading up to it, you're not stuck with trying to get, everything done and really pull an all-nighter, get it all done in 6 hours time.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, Alan, thanks for your time again. And as we're continuing these discussions, again, the hope is that these things are relevant not only to just students, but also anyone that is managing a life, which hopefully all of us are. But there's all these added things that come into our lives as we start adding on additional roles. And starting a new business is an additional role. So starting a new job, starting a family, getting married, these things are all good moments, but they also add stress. So I think oftentimes we think about only the negative occurrences in our life that cause stress. The loss of a job, the loss of an opportunity, but adding things, good things in our life also add stress. So Stephanie, can you maybe talk about like how do we manage some of this when stress is coming at us from all these different sources? How do you kind of manage and stop from just being overwhelmed from all the different sources of stress that might attach themselves to your life?
Yeah, great point. I think that's definitely something that happens as a result of, truly being passionate about what you're doing as well. You kind of get enveloped by all of the things that start to surround you. So it's again creating those areas of boundaries, which boundaries for
Mm.
you, knowing that, look, I really, I love all of this stuff, but what happens when you have too much coming at you at once, like you said, even if it's the good stuff, you're going to lose yourself in that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of really creating new habits and recognizing that you need to use your awareness within your own self and how your body's responding. And maybe it's going to be something like, you'll notice that you're getting frequent headaches. And I don't mean to turn this around to make
No,
it
it's
like
okay.
negative either. When positive things are happening, but ultimately, that is something that can happen even with a lot of positivity and stuff that you are interested in happening in your life can quickly add up and affect your, the way that you're recovering throughout the day. So, and with that, sleep is going to be the biggest proponent in making sure that you are recovering correctly, that you're setting that time for yourself to, disengage from even all the good stuff that might be happening throughout the day, making sure that you have that set sleep schedule for
Yeah.
yourself, that will help.
Yeah, and then as a kinesiology professional, what let's talk a little bit more specifically. We've mentioned it several times, but the exercise component, right? So this is all these things are connected and moving and getting the body engaged seems to be a critical component in managing the stress, even if it's emotional stress or mental stress. Still, that physical component has connections to this. So, you want to talk a little bit more specifically about what are some maybe targets that we should be thinking about as far as exercise and physical engagement in this process?
Right. So we know, there's good stress and there's bad stress. And while exercise places stress on your body, that's the good stress that we're looking for. And ultimately, we're looking at, if we can, every day you want to be out and be able to move. The minimum recommendation at this point is at least 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And that's going to mean, you want to get your heart rate up a little bit so that you are, you're not extremely dead by the time that you're done, but you did a little bit of work. And what that is in turn going to do is down regulate some of the stress hormones that your body is going to release, and it's going to up regulate some of those hormones that are going to be those really feel good hormones, those neurotransmitters that we get when we're taking care of ourselves. And you'll see as you make that habit and you make that, schedule that in and make that part of your day, you'll see that, maybe when you don't have that, you'll notice a difference. You'll notice that you're not feeling as good as you did
Yeah.
when you had that.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, back to now, and again, thank you for all of these things, but
Sure.
let's start thinking about how do you start wrapping this up? So what? Like I like all this and it makes sense. And maybe some of it's new, some of it's not, but that doesn't matter, which is why how do I get started, right? I'm nodding my head yes at all of it. I need a better sleep schedule. I need to manage my stress better. I need to be better at planning. I need to be investing more time to exercise physically. Those are all absolute yeses. But I also fail at doing that. Almost every single week I wake up at the start of a new week and say, this is it. This is the week. I make the change, and then those habits, they never tend to form. So here we sit, Penn State Startup Week 2021. This is a whole week where we talk about these things. This is a great point in time to say, okay, you know what? I've now thought about how important the who is in whatever it is. The who is the student, who is the entrepreneur, who is the parent, the brother, the sister, the family member, whatever the relationship, whatever the role. It seems pretty clear that the who matters. So
Mhm.
how do I get started at being a more productive, less stressed, more efficient person that can fill those roles?
Well, a few things. And the first thing of that being patience, right? We are humans, and there's not going to be every single week where you're going to feel like you're doing what you set out to do. So, first things first, you want to identify those areas that to you really seem like, okay, I need to work on this. Don't try to change everything all at once. Trying to change everything all at once, create three different habits all at once, very daunting, can be frustrating, and then leave you in that cycle that you just spoke of. So pick one big thing that you really want to hone in on to create a new habit. I think that's probably the smartest thing to do first. Pick one big thing. Let's say it's your sleep, right? And then once you identify, okay, here's some things that are keeping me from getting the proper sleep that I need, you are going to be the only person that knows that. And you're identifying those things. Okay, so how can I maybe shift my day to change those a little bit? How can I make new behaviors occur so that the same old habits don't keep happening, right? You want to create some different habits. So identify the issues or problems of the things that are getting in your way, setting some new behaviors. So you're going to actually have to be very aware of, okay, I know when I'm about to get ready for bed, I like to sit down and scroll through my phone. Well, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to sit and take my time for stillness, 5 to 10 minutes now. And that's going to take some time to get used to, right? So again, that's why I say patience, 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 because we know habits do take a long time to form. And ultimately, I think we don't even think about them. And that's what tends to become issues later on. So once you have that set, then you can reward yourself by saying, look, I've changed this about my day and my life, and it's making this better. And now I can maybe look onto improving another area. But starting small and celebrating those little steps along the way, I think, are really important.
Yeah, and as an educator, I tell my students all the time that my job is to manage the challenge where I keep challenge high, right? So starting new habits, starting an exercise program, the challenge is high, but
Mm-hmm.
typically the challenge isn't what prevents particularly students from achieving that high level of performance. It's frustration. So
Yeah.
what I talk about typically as an educator is I spend considerable amount of time setting a challenge, but the real priority for me is to make sure that students do not get frustrated, because frustration is the thing that throws you off. And again,
Yeah.
speaking for me personally, I set challenges probably too big, so I really appreciate your focusing on one thing with the challenge, but I don't manage that frustration really well, and that tends to be what resets me back to the beginning and have to start that over.
But you're noticing that. So I think that also is important, that if you
Mm,
start to feel yourself getting frustrated, then you might need to look back and say, okay, this is too much too soon.
yeah.
Let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah. So as we get ready to wrap up here as well, but so let me ask you this, right? So one of the things that again I tell my students is when you get frustrated, send me a message. Say,
Yeah.
Peter, maybe I'm not misunderstanding the assignment. Can you just explain this to me? So my recommendation always is, as soon as you sense frustration, reach out for help. So,
Absolutely.
so I know we can only speak particularly for some of the things that we have in our realm, but people should be able to make connections to, if you're not at Penn State Abington, if you're anywhere else, reaching out for help is important. So where does someone go if I'm a Penn State Abington student or a faculty member, and I'm frustrated with some of this? What are there some places, some resources, some conversations that I can enter into to maybe address some of that?
Yeah, I think that's excellent that you mentioned that. I mean, don't let it fester in, and reach out right away. So if you're not comfortable with reaching out directly to, let's say, a professor, if we're talking about a particular course here, I mean, that would be the first course of action. Definitely reach out. Don't feel like you can't reach out, because we're here to help the students. We are here for you. So, firstly, reach out to those students. And then we have wonderful resources. As far as Abington goes, we have CAPS. There's certainly very many helpful people to talk to there, making sure that you're staying on top of, your own mental health, and, advisors, things like that. There's plenty of people to definitely help out. So don't ever feel like you don't have anywhere to turn.
Yeah, good. All right. So that's all. I've run out of stuff. I now have things that I need to start adjusting, and
Okay.
things like how do I better manage my sleep, and like you said, adding something in, like adding reading into that process of getting ready to end my day is a way to start managing some of the systems in my body to prepare to power down some of the brain functions, and get ready to enter restful and restorative sleep, which would be, I think, it's a pretty nice goal to have. I think it's something that many of us probably have gone through at least periods of our lives where we have not been getting that restful restorative sleep, and we just assume that when the day ends we go to bed, but it's something that you can actually be better at sleeping.
Yep.
So tips like that, I think, are really helpful. So we hope that anyone that got to join us today, we thank you for your time, and hopefully you got some value out of this, because I really appreciate Stephanie and her time and her guidance as a way to at least helping us to reflect on what we do, and recognize that my guess is many of us are doing quite a lot and doing really, really well, but we could also be even better at it, particularly if we put ourselves as one of the important parts of the plan. So thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And, certainly reach out to me with any other questions.
Yeah, so we'll share down at the bottom of the screen here on YouTube. You should have some contact information for both the Abington Launchbox, Professor Abreu, and the programs that she supports here at Abington. And again, within your own community, whether that's a business community, chambers of commerce as well, are great places to connect with some of these resources that you can connect for not only just business purposes, but again, a lot of chambers of commerce are now also supporting the wellness of their membership and having conversations just like this. So we also encourage you to reach out to all the different spaces and places in your communities, on your campuses, because we want you individuals to be not only successful, but we want you to be healthy and well and happy as you're going about and being productive and successful. All right, good. So thanks, Stephanie. We appreciate it. We will hopefully see you all at more events across Penn State Startup Week and the Abington Launchbox. So thanks again.
Thank you.